The Big Small Business Show, proudly sponsored by MTN Business.
Welcome to the Big Small Business Show, the show for all our wonderful entrepreneurs out there. Whether you're starting a business next week or the week after you've started one and are perhaps having a battle with this whole entrepreneurial journey, whether you are succeeding, this is the show for you. But the one thing that is true for all small businesses, all growing businesses, is that we have to make sure that we comply with the law. So we have brought in our regular lawyer, I'm just going to say commercial lawyer. His name is Rui Marto. He's director of Marto Lafitte Associates, and he's here to talk about all things legal today. Now, this is going to be a completely legal show. It's all about the legalities that you need when running the business, and we're going to touch on different aspects, and we're going to start off by talking what legal entity is the right legal entity to actually have your business in or to start your business with. I don't know what the terminology is. Welcome, Roy.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me back on the show. I'm starting to feel very at home here.
Yes, and you look like a lawyer today, I must say. So you, as you said, looking quite dapper. So we've got a different opportunities in terms of a sole shareholder. Or sole proprietor, right? Partnerships, right? A company, as in a PTY, and a trust. Yeah. Are there any others?
There used to be the Closed Corporations Act, but those have fallen away. You can still purchase a closed corporation, but they're few and far between, and more of them are being converted. So they're probably not even worth mentioning.
Okay. So let's start with the four and what the benefits of each one are, and what is the downside of each one.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all. So I think one has to consider a case-by-case scenario in respect of which is the best vehicle to get started with. A sole proprietorship is really a situation in which an individual acts or goes into business in his own name. So there's no differentiation between the assets of the individual and the assets of the business. And of course, as I'm saying this, I can already see in your eyes that all the sorts of red flags would be coming up, and rightly so. Because in this instance, you don't have the protection that a company would give you by providing you with a corporate veil, as we call it, whereby the assets and liabilities of a company then are limited to the company. So the risk in respect of the sole proprietorship is that your own personal assets would always be at risk in relation to the business.
Well, what's the upside?
The upside is that it's simplistic. You can start a business immediately. You don't have to answer to anybody. And it's obviously a little bit cheaper in that regard in terms of the setup costs, in terms of a company, less formalities in terms of getting going. But really
So I still have to register it?
You register still for tax. You'd register for certain things, but you don't register an entity because there's no entity to register.
Right.
So if you're employing people, you would still
paying them yourself.
You'd be paying yourself, but you still have to register them with the tax authorities, of course. But honestly, whatever upside there is minimal in relation to the downside, and I would never recommend one proceeding. Unless you're 18 and running a lemonade stand on the side of the road, this is not the way to go.
Do you have to communicate that to your sole prop? To like on a letterhead, or does your customer need to know your sole prop or your supplier?
Well, you need to identify whatever entity you're running as. So if you're a sole proprietor, you would do so.
But what I'm saying, if it was Race Corp sole prop, as opposed to
everything would be in your personal name.
So it wouldn't be even a Race Corp. It would be Allon Raiz.
It'd be Allon Raiz.
Always, right?
Always.
That's important. So you can't even give your company a name.
It's not even trading as, no.
No. Okay. All right. That's important, because I see people that give their name to their company, but they then say that they're a sole prop.
Yes.
That's not possible.
They are liable in their personal entity,
okay,
in their personal capacity, and as I say, high risk.
Okay, partnerships.
So partnerships is exactly the same thing, but with a partner. So again, in this instance, each individual partner is responsible both in terms for the business liabilities and exposures in terms of, so it's almost like being married in community of property, but in business.
Okay.
And so there's no distinguishing aspect between your personal assets again and your business assets.
And do you still, if you're 50-50, if there's a liability, is it split 50-50?
Jointly and severally. So, so when there's liability, any creditor can come after you alone or jointly with your partner.
So that's not a good one.
Not a good one.
Okay, let's move to a good one, the company.
So company, of course, 99.9% of the time, and especially with close corporations now falling away, one would register a company. Gives you the safety, as I said, of having a corporate veil, with very few exceptions. So here you've got the protections of that. In this case, the assets and liabilities of the company are those of the company. And should something go wrong, at least your personal assets are protected. With 2 or 3 exceptions. One is, of course, reckless trading. If there's reckless trading and you continue to trade recklessly, then you're opening yourself up for personal liability. And also if a director or shareholder commits fraud.
Is that reckless trading a thing? Because people talk about reckless trading, and I know many entrepreneurs who are trading whilst they are insolvent, technically insolvent, and that could be deemed reckless trading. So where's the line for reckless trading?
It is definitely a thing.
Okay.
It's not just on the textbooks.
Yeah.
And if you carry on trading knowing that you're insolvent, you certainly open yourself up to personal liability. Full stop.
Okay.
So there's definitely a high risk in that.
And you can't say, I didn't know.
The test is a legal one. And so if you know that you're insolvent, you suspect that you're insolvent. And of course, it could go further. So it goes from reckless trading to criminal offense. If, for example, you now put in an order knowing that you can't pay for it, that's fraud.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to the trust.
So trust is a funny animal. It's considered a juristic person, similar to a company, but it doesn't have a separate status like a company. I won't go into the whole academic debate relating to trusts. But in essence, you've got a donor who will donate certain assets and for the management by trustees of those assets for the benefit of beneficiaries. So you really have 3 classes in a trust: donor, trustee, and beneficiaries. And so you'd have something like an education trust, for example, in terms of which you can set up an education trust for your children, and the grandfather can put up some money, has his son be the trustee to look after those assets for the benefit of his grandchildren in terms of, for example, for education, university fees, etc. But in business, you can have a business trust, which will work in a similar way, in which one can still run through it. The disadvantage of the trust is that SARS targets trusts. Trusts are sometimes used for the evasion of tax, and for that reason, amongst others, SARS then charges trusts a higher percentage on every single category of tax, from income tax, capital gains, etc. And so usually what we recommend when someone's looking at company structures is that there still is a place for trusts, but you have the trust holding the shares in a company, and you rather run the operation through a company. Okay,
Rui, that's all we got time for right now. Just stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Rui about limiting liability for us entrepreneurs. How can we protect ourselves a little bit more in what seems to be a very scary world? We'll be right back.